There was actually a point in time where Sony toyed with the idea of making the PSP more than just a handheld gaming console. The premise was to make it this modular, jack-of-all-trades, pocket-sized electronic wonder. Add-ons like a GPS receiver, a TV tuner, radio antenna, and even a cellular phone module were all rumored to be in development for the PSP. While some of these would actually see the light of day, others would be rolled into future Sony projects. Today I want to talk about one of these modular accessories that actually did come out for the PSP. Known as the GoCam in Europe or the Chotto Shot in Japan, it was the official accessory developed by Sony to add photography and video capabilities to the PSP. There were two versions of the camera that actually came out. The PSP-300, aka the silver one, was a 1.3 megapixel capable of 1280 by 960. This was a slightly more expensive, more premium version. That was a better option for photography or video editing projects. The PSP-450X, aka the black one, aka the potato, was 0.3 megapixels capable of 640 by 480. Can you guess which one is the one I got? This one was a more budget-friendly version of the camera that was more geared to be used with specific games that actually utilized the camera's hardware, and there weren't many. This one actually came bundled with the Invisimals game, but we'll touch on that a little bit later on. I know that by today's standards, the resolution of these cameras is atrocious. But in 2006, it was pretty common to have a cell phone with a 2 to 3 megapixel camera, so it was actually pretty comparable to what was available during that time period. If you look more closely at the lens, you see that you can actually switch over to a macro function, allowing for close-ups and capturing better detail. Over on the side is the microphone, and on the bottom is where it connects to the PSP. It connects to the PSP's USB, but it also uses these two little prongs right here. This is an absolutely horrible design because these prongs are really sensitive, and if anything happens to either of them, the camera is not going to function properly. There's something wrong with one of these prongs, and I'm constantly having to scrape it with a needle to get it to connect properly. And even when it actually does connect, sometimes it causes some stuttering while video recording. It clamps on top of the handheld, and once screwed in, it actually stays in place pretty snugly. It has a swivel design allowing for front and outward facing shots. Now I know the quality is terrible, but there's actually something quite nostalgic and pretty cool about capturing footage with this thing. It's like once I started I didn't want to stop, and I found myself taking little video clips of everything. Like I said before, there was very limited use for this camera, hardly any software came out for it, but there were a couple of games that did utilize it. Invisimals was an augmented reality capture and battle game. It tried almost to be like an AR Pokemon clone that encouraged real-life exploration. The game jumps back and forth between these live-action cutscenes and use of the PSP camera. The overall premise is some bootleg Professor Oak wants you to track down the Invisimals so that he can research them. Once captured, the Invisimals can be trained, evolve, and used in Pokemon-style battles. Unfortunately, in order to properly use the game, it came bundled with these AR cards, which I do not have. Fortunately, you can just look up a picture of them on your cell phone or print them out, and it works all the same. I think this is probably the most ambitious use for the PSP camera. Although far from perfect, it was still pretty ahead of its time. It can be finicky at times, you need to always find the flat surface and the lighting needs to be spot on. But when it works, it's actually kind of fun. Overall, it was a pretty solid early attempt at an augmented reality game. iPet is a portable adaptation of the PS3's virtual pet game that gives you this little monkey squirrel gigapet kind of thing that you have to take care of, raise, and play with. Similar to Invisimals, it's an augmented reality game and utilizes an AR card. And even if you don't have the card, just like Invisimals, you can pull up a picture of it on your phone and it works all the same. I can't say much about this game because you really kind of have to be into the whole virtual pet thing in order to find this amusing. For those of us that grew up in the 90s, we had already gone through our Tamagotchi and Gigapet phase. I could kind of see it being entertaining for a younger audience, but at the same time, it's pretty frustrating. It has some pretty strict lighting demands, the room can't really be dim at all, and I would imagine the AR card would have been easily lost back then, rendering the game useless. With games like Nintendogs already being out and available for the DS at the time, I see this one as pretty underwhelming. Talkman doesn't really utilize the PSP's camera, but it heavily utilizes the microphone. And boy, was this game really ahead of its time. Essentially what it is a voice-driven language translation tool crossed with a casual party game. You can use it with someone of a different language and talk into the microphone and it will actually translate the words over to them. Now mind you, this is 2005, 2006 we're talking here. This is before smartphones. So having something like this would have been extremely helpful while traveling abroad. It comes with 4 languages, which makes it kind of limiting, but there's some really helpful preloaded phrases depending on what situation you find yourself in. Of course, you can always just talk into the microphone and have it translated that way as well. The game also has these pronunciation mini-games that are aimed to help you if you're learning another dialect. Another cool feature are the party games that can be played with people of different languages. To me, that's so cool that this game is aimed towards bringing people together despite the language barriers. Talkman was super ahead of its time, and it's a shame it had such a limited release. If it had been bundled and advertised properly, I could see this being a unique selling point for the handheld. Kind of the same way Brain Age became a unique selling point for the DS. Go Edit, or Go Edit as it's titled, was the basic video and photo editing software that came bundled with most of these cameras. It's pretty bare bones and lackluster, all things considered, but I could see it definitely sparking some videography or photography interest in some young minds. So the PSP camera. Sony seems to have a pretty strong track record of coming up with some good ideas, but executing it half-assed. I really feel like this accessory could have been much more than what it was had it been given the proper care and attention. It was underdeveloped and underutilized, and trying to be a pioneer with these augmented reality gimmicks really didn't make a lot of sense. Like, can you imagine how cool it would have been to have a survival horror game using real-world environments through the camera? The PSP was more than capable of doing it. It was also rumored that the Go Edit software was supposed to have a lot more features. A stop-motion animation tool, a vlog editor, a photo comic book story creator, and even a YouTube uploader were all rumored to have been part of the original pitch for the software. But what we ended up with was this shelled-out bare-bones editor. Now, once again, these are rumors. I don't know how true they actually are, but that would have been really badass. As far as the camera itself goes, I have to be honest, I really enjoyed filming with it. Everything I captured on the other end of that lens was almost like looking through a time capsule. As crappy as the footage is, it makes everything feel nostalgic, and reminds me of a time when things were much more simple. Hell, I enjoyed using it so much this probably isn't going to be the last you see of this camera. I'm definitely going to try to incorporate it into some future projects. As it stands, the PSP camera is another one of those Sony what-ifs, only on a much smaller scale. I can't help but wonder how different this handheld would have been had all of those other planned modular attachments come out for it. Like, can you imagine how crazy it would have been using this thing as your cell phone? And I definitely would have, because I was all in on the PSP when it first came out. Anyway, what did you guys think of the PSP camera? Did any of you guys have it? Did you actually utilize it? Or did you think it was pointless? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. Hope you all enjoyed. Until next time, this is Ness, signing out.